Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of English Book on TV. We are your hosts. I'm Mr. Darrell.
I'm Miss Samantha, and today we'll be discussing Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson.
And this is for grades 7, 8, and 9.
Let's begin.
Let's look at the agenda today. We will look at the vocabulary that we have chosen for today, have a look at the author, and give a little summary of the book.
Of course, after that, we will explore the characters, the setting, and some main themes before concluding with a review of what we learned and giving you some homework.
I'm looking forward to the homework.
Oh, me too. Now, our first vocabulary word for you today is an inn. Now, that's inn with 2 N's. And an inn is a house providing accommodation, food, and drink for travelers. Kind of a historical word for hotel.
And a very important word next, pirate, to this book, of course. A pirate is a person who attacks and robs ships at sea. He's often shown looking for money and treasure.
And what would a pirate be without his crew? Now that's our next word, a crew, which is a group of people who work on and operate a ship.
Our next word is a mutiny. Mutiny. This is a rebellion against the people who are in charge, and it can often happen to crews of a ship.
And someone who is involved in a mutiny will be a conspirator. Our next word. Now, a conspirator is a person who takes part in a secret plan to do something harmful or unlawful.
Our next word is a noun, and it is greed. Greed. This is the intense or selfish desire for something, and especially money.
But let's move on to a nicer word, and that word is courage. Now, courage is strength in the face of difficulty or the ability to do something that frightens you. A synonym for courage is bravery.
And our last word is charisma. Charisma. This is the charm or attractiveness in a character that can inspire other people to feel love or loyalty or enthusiasm towards you.
These are some great words. Please keep them in mind throughout our lesson and for when you read the book yourself. Now, of course, we should talk about the author in order to understand our book better. Darrell, can you give us some background on our specific author for today?
Indeed, I can. This is Robert Louis Stevenson, born in the mid-19th century and actually died before the 20th century, just at about the end, 1894. He was from Scotland, so he was a Scottish novelist and travel writer. One big issue with him is that he suffered from serious health troubles, but he continued to write and he continued to travel widely. He was that sort of person, an adventurous person, and he loved writing and traveling so much so he wouldn't stop.
Oh, that's great. But it actually wasn't on his travels that he got the idea for Treasure Island. Nope, it was when he and his stepson, one rainy day in Scotland, were entertaining themselves by drawing a map. And he got his inspiration for this book from their imaginary map. And Stevenson said that this book was to be a story for boys. No need of psychology or fine writing. What he meant by this was women wouldn't play a very large part in this book. There's no romance involved, and you wouldn't have to think too hard to like the book. It's really just a fun, entertaining book for boys. But I think you will agree, Darrell, that all of us can be entertained by this wonderful book. So let's get into Treasure Island with our summary.
Okay, let's get to it. Almost right away, Treasure Island starts with excitement. After a fight at the inn where our main character Jim Hawkins works, a man named Billy Bones, who lives at the inn, tells Jim to beware of a one-legged man.
Later, Jim finds a map of an island where the infamous Captain Flint has hidden his treasure.
Jim and two other men named Dr. Livesey and John Trelawney decide to go to the island looking for the treasure, with Jim serving as a cabin boy on the ship. They hire a new crew and set sail on Trelawney's ship to start a big voyage.
But much of the crew on Trelawney's ship, as it's later revealed, are pirates who once served under Captain Flint. The most notable and charismatic member of the crew is Long John Silver, the one-legged chef.
Jim, hiding in a basket, overhears the pirate crew members, and he hears that they are conspirators making a plan to mutiny after finding the treasure. He also learns that they are going to kill himself, Dr. Livesey, Trelawney, and the captain of the ship.
After arriving on Treasure Island, Jim meets a pirate named Ben Gunn. Gunn also used to be a member of Captain Flint's crew, but he was stranded on the island for many years.
The situation gets worse after the pirate conspirators arm themselves with weapons, and the captain's men, including Jim, Dr. Livesey, and Trelawney, hide on the island to keep safe.
But Jim sneaks away, and he's captured by Long John Silver and the pirates. Silver has the map now, and they all go looking for treasure.
Eventually, they find the treasure, but it's empty. The pirates are angry at Silver and Jim, but the two of them escape.
Dr. Livesey explains that Gunn had already found the treasure and had taken it to his cave nearby. The men load much of the treasure onto the ship, and they sail away.
On their way back to Bristol, England, where the story first began, Silver actually steals a bag of money and runs away.
Once at Bristol, the rest of the men divide up the treasure. Jim says that there's more treasure left on the island, but he will not go on another voyage to recover it. He's had enough excitement for his time, and I don't blame him at all.
I would feel the same way.
I think I would too. So now that we know what happens, let's take a look at who is in our story with our characters.
We've got several characters, of course. Let's start with the protagonist, the hero of the story. That would be Jim Hawkins. Jim is the teenage son of an innkeeper near Bristol. He's got this kind of personality. He's eager and enthusiastic, often impulsive. He wants to go out to sea and he wants to hunt for treasure. So maybe life was a bit boring in the inn. He's a modest narrator, his style of telling us the story. He never boasts, he never brags of the courage and heroism that he consistently shows throughout the story.
Now that brings us to Billy Bones. What a name that is.
That's a great name.
Now, Billy Bones is the old seaman who stays at Jim's parents' inn. Billy Bones is rude, he's not very kind, and he refuses to pay his bills at the inn, which really symbolizes how pirates don't like society or order or law or civilization. Billy Bones is also important because he hires Jim to be on the lookout for a one-legged man, which is what involves the young Jim in the pirate life. Billy's sea chest and his treasure map set the whole adventure into motion.
Next, we move to a classic pirate character in the history of pirate stories and pirate novels. And that is Long John Silver. Long John Silver. Despite being the cook, the man who prepares food on the ship, he's actually the secret leader of the pirate crew. He's charismatic, he's careless, quick and brave. He's also got a lot of physical and emotional strength, so he's obviously quite an impressive person. But he's also deceitful, disloyal, and greedy. He doesn't care about people too much. But he is always kind to Jim in particular, and he genuinely likes the boy.
What a complex character he is.
Very interesting one.
Now that brings us to Ben Gunn. Now, he used to be a member of Captain Flint's crew, but he became half insane after being stranded on the island for 3 years. He helps Jim by giving him the location of his homemade boat, and he kills 2 of the conspirators in the mutiny. On the way back to England at the end of the story, Gunn lets Silver escape, and in England, he spends his share of the treasure, about £1,000, in only 19 days.
Wow.
He's not very good with money. So he becomes a beggar, but luckily his luck turns around and he becomes a church singer on Sundays and on holy days. So now that we know more about our characters, let's take a look at our setting, which of course you all will remember is the time and place of a story.
Well now, it is the late 16th century, Samantha, and I suppose we should say something about pirates in general. Some historians say the pirate culture, the whole world around piracy and pirates, was a radical political movement, actually, that kept alive the dreams of 17th century political radicals long after they were chased out of towns and cities in England and elsewhere. They took to the seas and they became pirates. So they're kind of political refugees, in a way. Now, specifically this book, though, Treasure Island, its influence on the legend of pirates is enormous. Such familiar things such as treasure maps with an X on it, marking treasure, fast ships, hot, sweaty, tropical islands, and one-legged seamen with parrots, the birds, on their shoulders, all come from this book. So this set that standard.
Wow, every idea I had of parrots, or of pirates, excuse me, of pirates come from this book. Now that brings us to our where. We begin our story near Bristol, England, the real town, which is honestly not very exciting in our story. But then we move on to Treasure Island. Now, Daryl, I am sorry to tell you this, but Treasure Island is not a real place. It doesn't exist, though it was based on a couple different places. Now, one of the islands it was based on is near Cuba, and it served as a supply base for pirates for about 300 years. Another island that it might be based on is near the British Virgin Islands. And Stevenson's, our author's, sailor uncle actually told him about this island that's very similar in appearance to Treasure Island. It's pretty interesting. Now that brings us to our main themes.
We have probably about 2 themes we could talk about today, but I would like to focus on the first one, Treasure Island, as a coming-of-age story, which means Jim is basically navigating his way through life. He's a boy, of course, and he learns about life and he learns moral lessons from this. It also appears that he's looking for a father figure because he's missing his own father. And he looks up to Trelawney first and Dr. Livesey as father figures, but they're not exciting enough, or they just don't click enough for him. Finally, he looks at the pirate Long John Silver as a hero and a role model, and this works for him. He himself becomes more courageous, brave, and he becomes more independent because of Silver.
And that brings us to our next theme of greed. Now, by the end of the adventure, Jim and the captain's crew have satisfied their greed because they found the treasure. But for the pirates, the treasure map and their greed just leads them to an empty hole in the ground, which really reflects the emptiness inside of their souls and inside of their hearts, searching for the treasure. But the characters who value other qualities, like adventure, friendship, and loyalty, they are the ones who are rewarded in the end. So we learned that greed is no good. And there are plenty of other themes to explore, but we're just about out of time, so you have to do that on your own. Now, to review, we talked about our author, then the summary, some of our characters, the setting of Treasure Island in the 18th century, and finally, we looked at two themes, coming of age and greed.
I think it's a good time now to review the words from the beginning. Here they are. An inn, a pirate, a crew, a mutiny, a conspirator, greed, courage, and charisma.
Now that brings us to our homework. We've loved hearing from all of you. You have such great ideas, so please keep sending them in.
Now, here's the question. If you could be one of the characters in the book, either Jim Hawkins, the teen hero, or Long John Silver, the pirate, who would you want to be and why?
We're so excited to hear your answers. Be sure to submit them to englishbookeducation.co.uk/homework. Thank you all so much for joining us today in our lesson on Treasure Island. We'll see you all next week.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.